walk out to the show and fall out your door. We got that info for you. Touchdown on that plane and buy anything. More than just a podcast for you.
So I'm going to ask this. We had this come up last week. Last week, I learned that I was a little bit privileged and spoiled as a parent. My child went from football to basketball, and one of the other parents pointed out that football conditioning is very different from basketball conditioning. So this is where I want to ask the experts. You run a lot in football, you run a lot in track. How does basketball conditioning differ from other sports?
I'll start with that one. First and foremost, I want to say I probably think that basketball athletes are probably the most athletic people on earth. The reason I say that is because the things you have to do in basketball are in every single sport, and you have to do more. Coordination as a whole. I think the most thing comparable to coordination is probably soccer with the foot-eye coordination. Basketball, you have to be able to move your feet, you have to be able to catch, you have to be able to dribble, you have to be able to pass, you have to be able to shoot, you have to be able to play defense. In other sports, everybody has their own position that they play. Say football, all right, I play defense. All right, my time's up. I'm going to sit on the sideline right now. Basketball, yeah, a point guard all the way to the 5, running up and down the court the whole time, having to do everything that the quarterback does. Basically, I have to pass, I have to shoot, I have to play defense. I have to be able to dribble. I have to do everything. And so with that, you have to be strong physically conditioned in your mind and also your body, because you're running for 40 minutes. Some players don't get off the floor for 40 minutes. And if you ever played 40 minutes, that's a long time just running up and back and down the floor, on the floor.
Okay.
Absolutely. Just like in basketball, it's required to be lean. I mean, it's easier on your body. It helps you recover faster. So the better shape you're in, the healthier you are. You don't have any of those naggy injuries. I mean, basketball conditioning in comparison to football conditioning, it's night and day. It's night and day, because I mean, in football, you have to be a bit heavier. You have to be able to absorb some of those hits and everything. So if you're too wiry or too lean, I mean, that's going to be detrimental to your career as well. But yeah, I would say in terms of basketball, I mean, it's just like Donovan said, you have to be a much more well-conditioned athlete to play basketball than you do football.
So just before Kevin jumps in, describe what you mean when you say lean and wiry.
So basically, I mean, just to put it in layman's terms, the least amount of fat as possible. You kind of want to build those muscles. You want to build those quick twitch. I guess what is that? The quick twitch fibers these days everybody talks about. So I mean, and honestly, too much muscle can also kind of debilitate some of your skill set as well. Because like I said, you don't want to be too heavy. You want to take as much stress off of your joints and bones as much as possible, so you can have a lengthy career. So what I mean by lean and wiry is the least amount of fat as possible.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right. There's no reason to carry any extra weight. It doesn't, you don't need armor like you do in football, So, this is funny. I was just working on, I'm a strength coach for a living, and I was just looking through some stuff on conditioning just the other day, and you should condition how you play, right? So football has got 10 seconds of action and 30 seconds of rest, right? So you got to be able to go hard for 10 seconds, and then you get 30 seconds off. And then, as Jordan or Donovan mentioned, then oftentimes you get a couple minutes off when your offense or defense goes and sits. In basketball, you don't get that. And so you got to go for 20, 30 seconds as hard as you can. Maybe you get 10, 15 seconds on an out of bounds or a free throw, and then you got to go again. And it's lateral, it's forward, it's backwards, transverse, it's all directions, changing direction, stopping, starting. So the conditioning for basketball is different. I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's worth talking about which is better, harder, easier. It's just, for basketball, is very similar to soccer, except we have the whole upper body in the game as well versus soccer's, primarily hips and lower body. So, and this is something I always used to want to run my guys in the early part of our getting ready for our preseason, just to I thought it was building a base. And one of the things I'm going to be changing going forward is we're no longer going to run slow, because running slow makes you slow. And so, slow jogs, I think of like boxers, MMA guys, they'll put a lot of time on the road to build their base. But in basketball, I'm going to move away from that. And all we're going to do when we condition from now on is short spurts, change directions, jumps, landings, and I'm going to move away from anything that's slow. And because the saying is it's hard to make them fast, but it's easy to make them slower. So I'm going to do my best to avoid, anything that involves slowness with basketball conditioning going forward.
If you don't mind, I have a question for you, Kevin.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on weightlifting?
So weightlifting, strength is never a weakness. So being stronger is the base for jumping and running faster, jumping higher, running faster. There's no way you can jump higher if you're weaker, and there's no way you can run faster if you're weaker. So, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to have strong athletes, not have athletes who are weightlifters. So we're going to do we're going to do a lot of hip work. We're going to do a lot of ankle work. We're going to do a lot of explosive work. When I go to, I got visited to the NBA strength and conditioning conferences a couple years. They do it every year in Chicago during the combine. And so I've listened to the NBA guys talk, and, it's pretty much hips down. And then for fun with basketball guys, you throw in some bicep work so they look good in that tank top.
Girls for the girls.
Yep. But, so that, and that keeps them coming back, right? So, you give them a little bit of love with, pumping up the shoulders and the biceps. But for the most part, it's hip work, it's glutes, it's your posterior, it's your ability to explode and land and absorb force and create force. And whether it's forward, backwards, or laterally. And yeah, you have to strength train. There's and there's some mobility training too, right? The ankles are really interesting on basketball players. And so everybody who's played has got, how many stories do you guys have on rolling your ankles?
Steph Curry rolling my ankles, man.
Yeah, he's the ankle.
Shoulders messed up, everything.
So yeah, you have to that recovery and that getting that mobility back, because when that ankle gets stiff, then it tends to affect your knees, it tends to affect your back, it tends to affect your hips. So, it's not only the strength side of it, it's the mobility side as well that's important. And but the problem is so many of our guys are getting trained like football players.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's the issue is you don't train some guy, some 6'7" guy with long arms and long thighs like he's a 5'8" tailback. Those are two different animals.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
that's what occur in all of those little foot injuries and so forth.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's some fun stuff, and then you start thinking about those guys above 6'10" and their feet. And what those guys look like, their toes and getting their feet and their ankles right. It's I don't know, some of the pictures. I've never had a chance to really work with a kid that big. I have one right now of a size 14, 12-year-old that I think is going to be pretty large here in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
And so I'm working. He's in the gym now 2 days a week, and he's getting coordinated. He's gonna be pretty good, because when you're that big at 12 years old, you're you're like a giraffe. You're just flopping all over the place. And so it's. But anyhow, back to your original question, though, is just train like you play. Train, condition for the sport.
So this is the part where I say, parents, don't be like I was. I just, up until this conversation, I was just like, oh, we did football, basketball, and track. And I was just like, oh, he was in shape. So we're taking it for granted, parents, that our children are in the appropriate shape and even that they're training appropriately for their sport. So I have so many more questions that I want to ask just because of this conversation. I'm going to re-listen to this, and I have tons of conversations because I'm quite sure there are a bunch of parents like me who just assume that because our kid does one sport that they should train exactly the same when they go into basketball and that they're already ready for basketball. And what I've learned today is, one, we're not ready at all. Totally different muscle groups, totally different way that you train. So this was actually really good. I learned a ton.
Well, Jim said real quick, most of these guys though can train like football players because most of them are 6'1" and under. You know, but when you get a tall kid, a long kid, is where it really gets complicated for the football coach to train that guy. He's going to want to power clean him, and long dudes can't power clean. I mean, they can, but there's better ways to get explosive training. And so, to your parents, to your thoughts is, at a certain point, finding somebody, if you're going to play basketball and you have the length that will get you to the next level, you got to find somebody who understands basketball.
So let me ask this, because it's ironic that we have this conversation about big people. One of my moms that I work with, her babies are all big, 6'7" and above. And one of the things that we talked about just 2 weeks ago is how hard it is for her youngest right now is, I think he's like between 9 and 12, and he is what you were talking about, size 12 shoe. He's huge. And so if you were going to say, and I know, guys, that this is not necessarily one of our questions, but I'm the host, I can ask what I want to ask. If you were going to talk to my mom that has that young kid who's in middle school, who's head and shoulders above everyone else, when you said giraffe, that is exactly the word that she used about him. Who should she be looking for? Because right now where she is a very football heavy. The school that they go to, the training is football heavy because that's what the school is known for. So what's one nugget that you can give to her? And she's going to listen to this. So what's one nugget you can give to moms of bigs?
Work on their mobility, work on their hips, and just be patient because their day is coming.
Yeah, strengthening this basic strength. You don't have to get on weights or anything no time soon, being 9 or 12. Between 9 and 12. Like Kim was saying, we're just working on basically the fundamentals of your body and everything like that. Your core, hips, be able to move right and left, run up and back, up and backwards, and everything like that. Just being a kid, basically, that'll be the best thing for him. Just be a kid, go outside, play, do everything he can. By the time he gets to high school, everything will change, and he'll start getting stronger. His body will start changing. His features on his body, where he can jump up and down, move laterally, front and back, but everything will start changing from that point. So like I said, just be a kid, work on a little strength training, like push-ups, sit-ups, and like Kev said, mobility and everything like that.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for allowing me to segue. I get to be selfish today because I'm the host.
But tell the mom to be patient because that kid is not looking like the greatest basketball player today because the quick kids run circles around him at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
His day's coming. And
Yeah.
if you just hang in there with him, don't his day will come. And at one point he may be the best of them all. But in the 7th grade, he may not look like it because he can't run as fast, he can't jump, he can't stop, he trips over his own feet all the time, he can't catch. These are issues that they will fix themselves if he keeps working.
Yeah.
And that's the saddest thing is sometimes these big guys, it just takes a while. It's different.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you guys for allowing me to segue. I appreciate it. So we do on the show something called the Tweener Series, and this is where our experts get to show their expertise. So the Tweener Series question for basketball is, what is the difference between a point guard and a shooting guard? Role on the court, measurables. If I'm a parent, how should I be positioning my child who is on the bubble between the two so that they can be prepared to move from high school to college and vice versa?
I would say a point guard is a facilitator and a leader. And then that's not just a leader on the court, but off the court as well. Also, you want your point guard to be the person who sets a good example for everybody. They kind of set the tone for, the rest of the team and how well everybody does and how hard everyone works. A shooting guard, I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean you can't be a leader, but you have to be a knockdown shooter. You have to be able to score the ball at a high capacity. You have to be able to make the right reads. You have to be able to defend a shooting guard as well. So I would say those are the two main differences, or the descriptions between the two, if you will.
Let's talk measurables. What should we be looking at? What do they look like?
What level you play at?
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard to determine that, because you got LeBron, who's a 6'8", 240 and plays point guard. So
it's very hard. It depends on where you play at.
Yeah.
So give me an example.
I'm a tweener at a D2 level, so I'm a 6'1" point guard / shooting guard, and so that was my role back in college. And so my goal was to open off screens, shoot the ball, point guard sub out. I bring the ball down the court and everything like that. And which the game has changed so much, it's not really a position game no more. It's a positionless game. Like Jordan said, you got a 6'11" guy bring the ball down the court now. It's not really no positions anymore. It's just, can you play basketball? Can you pass? Can you shoot? Can you play defense? And it really, so a tweener could be anything. At a high major like UK, Michigan, could be a 6'5" guy playing a point guard and a shooting guard. He can shoot the ball, he can pass the ball, he can make the play get started and stuff like that. It's really not anything that you have to be anymore. It's just what can you do on the floor?
So that's a little bit different from football.
Yeah.
Because in football, there's definite like
quarterback, there's a running back, which let's say basketball, you have to play everything. You have to pass, you have to shoot, you have to be able to play defense, you have to do all of it.
Kevin, thoughts?
I think those guys covered it perfectly. I have nothing really to add.
So here's what
I want my best guy to be my hardest worker. And if I get lucky that guy's also the point guard, that team's got a decent chance.
Yep.
So here's what I would like for parents to take away from this, because once again, this is another category I was wrong. Basketball, more than any other sport, requires versatility. And you cannot, what I learned in this few minutes is that you cannot say, well, my kid is going to go to college and play X position, because that may, the heads that are shaking. Because that is not going to be basketball. Totally works different from other sports. A shortstop is a shortstop. A pitcher's a pitcher, but in this instance, it's really skill set and ability. So it would behoove the parents who are listening, who want their kids to play basketball in college, to ensure that their kids are versatile, that they can defend, that they can shoot, they can lead on and off the court. That's a really huge call out, because I had all my little notes prepared, and I'm just going to put my little notes down because, not valid. So parents, when you're listening to this, just know basketball is flowing a little bit different, a lot different from any other sport that you will encounter. In track, a jumper's a jumper. You're not going to be asked to do certain things, but in basketball, the more versatile your child's skill set, the more opportunity that you will have for them to get to be in the next level.
I'd like to add some things that are for the parents. Your child also have to know how to play basketball. You can't just have somebody go out there and score 30 points, but don't know how to run a play. I've seen so many players come to college and great all-state people, but just never get on the floor because they can't listen to what a coach has to say, or also how to run a play, or defensive assignments and schemes and stuff like that. It changes a whole much when you get to college. It's no longer just put the best player on the floor like in high school, let them score a bunch of points. You had to pay. You had to be a player with 5 people on the floor.
Yeah, unless you're a generational talent, it doesn't matter, whether or not you can get 30 points a game. It's all about how well you can fit into the system. But I will say, if you can knock down a 3-pointer consistently, they'll always find a way for you to get out there on the floor. But
you can be up for too long though if you can't play defense.
Exactly. So it's all about that basketball IQ and how well you fit into a system.
Okay then.
James said that your mother friend who has the big kids, the challenge that they face is it is versatility, but in the early years, those big kids get stuck not being able to do what they're going to need to do when they get older. So as you're coming up, oftentimes the big guy never gets to handle the ball in practice. Big guy never gets to do the dribble drills. He never gets to do the ball handling, even though that 6'7" guy is a point guard in college if he develops those skills. So it's so important as that middle school and early high school that even though they have a role to play in that team because they're the big guys, so they're going to play the big man role, they still got to get those skills because in college they're going to need it. So Donovan and Jordan are saying, because everybody is, and now suddenly they have to be interchangeable. They just can't be some big guy standing on the post, and like they could in high school. So that's you're hitting it on the head, but that gets way overlooked oftentimes in the middle school and high school years.
Yeah,
that's fabulous feedback. I get to go. I have a mom group, so I get to go talk to my moms. See, this is awesome.
And that's like Kevin was saying. There's a bunch of 6'3", 6'4" guys playing center in high school that never ever learned how to dribble the ball or anything. Like just no post moves. You get to college, 6'3", 6'4" as a point guard now. There's not really much you can do with 6'3", 6'4" in college playing post. You got to be basically either a 3 or a 4 at a mid-major or a low level if you're gonna play 6'5" and below.
Yeah. The best advice for the tall kid right now is just be a kid. Let them bring the ball up the court. Do dribbling drills. Do pretty much every position on the floor. Because for one, who's to say he's going to get any taller? And for two, like what's it going to hurt if you're a 7-footer who can handle the ball? So definitely, I mean, experiment, man. Like let them be a kid. Let them shoot wild shots and everything.
Y'all are hurting some feelings right now because I know some people that are like, well, my kid is these measurables. So when he gets to the next level, he's going to be right here. Whoo, reality.
That's a very good mindset. That's almost like you telling your kid that, well, that's like you treating your kid, he's gonna be a lawyer at 9 years old, and you're driving all of this thing into them, and then you look up 10 years from then he becomes a doctor, and all of that stuff that you instilled in him is completely useless, So I think now is one of those times where you have to, like I said, how old is the kid? You said 12?
Yeah.
You said he's 12. At 12, his game can go night and day from what it is, what it is today from, like I said, 10 years from now. His game can completely change. I mean, we've seen it firsthand. One of our good friends, George Fant, right, who grew up playing basketball his entire life, his parents and even him, he's going to be a basketball player. Now look what he's doing,
What George is doing.
Yep, he's in the NFL, plays left tackle.
So, guys, this is really, really, really good because when you say, Kevin, you can tell them sometimes parents in their mind, they say, this is what my kid is going to be. And that doesn't, for the parent, that doesn't change in their mind, even though the kid's skill set is not conducive to what they think.